All right. Welcome to the Harpswell Select Board meeting of March 27th. Anybody who wants to participate can go to the town agenda and get the meeting ID and the password. I guess we can forego the Pledge of Allegiance and we'll skip to adoption of the agenda.
I don't have any, unless you want to do that dark night tonight, but
No, I think we'd like to post it with our agenda in 2 weeks.
Okay, that makes sense, okay.
Yeah.
So I have nothing.
All right, public comment. I see none.
Wait a minute.
Wait.
You're not looking.
He's used to hearing me is why, not seeing me. Good evening. I'm Allison Hawks from Cundy's Harbor. I'm here to express my overwhelming frustration on how leadership handled the town meeting. The town meeting was quite a sight to see as the building continued to pour in with citizens of every age and walk of life. The young people and toddlers in attendance was nothing like I had seen in my time. It was beautiful and what we always want to see, involvement. I showed up early with 4 generations of my family to speak on March 8th. It's not an easy feat for anyone raising a young family and coordinating across households. To everyone's surprise, we had to leave due to fire code. People were pissed, and rightfully so. They had come to be heard, and now they wouldn't have that opportunity. Honestly, to me, this was the worst thing that could have happened at town meeting. This may seem trivial to some, but for the masses, it was unfair. This silenced so many, and especially the young people. We continually talk about hoping to hear from them. Well, they came, and they were essentially ignored. The new quick turnaround on meeting time that left the majority of retired folks available, but young working people unable to obtain more time off to attend. I hope that experience doesn't tarnish the way that they participate in the future, especially when we need more young volunteers. And due to prior commitments, I was unable to attend at the new meeting, and that was heartbreaking. I'm confused how it got to that point. How was leadership unaware of how upset the town was going to be? All the controversial issues didn't just sprout up. They've been contentious issues. The new emergency service building spending $6 million is worthy of a discussion amongst the townspeople. I have always loved that this forum allowed healthy, open discussion where we can hear from opposing views, and it can help create understanding. I'm thankful for the good work in the comp plan, and I have concerns. What happened to the work of this short-term rental task force? Surveys were supplied to the town, and the committee did extensive work in this area. It was finalized that the town wanted to leave short-term rentals alone. How did the brand-new 2025 plan have that in there? Was that complete lack of oversight, or was the majority of the committee not interested in what the town wanted? Committee members that pushed that narrative should not reapply for membership. We were assured last year that the short-term rental stuff would not move forward in the plan. This activity has created a great deal of mistrust and wasted money and time. Now that the committee is prepared to cut this part from the comp plan, how do we know it's for sure this time? We need to stop trying to force the ideas that we can pack more people here geographically without considerable impacts to historic character, wildlife, water, existing citizens, pollution, etc. Harpswell is not meant to be growing exponentially. And I will end with this. As a member of a fishing family, I find it appalling that we continue to use fishermen and our families as reasons to lead a certain way. We need to restrict STRs. We need affordable housing so the fishing families and their helpers can live here. The website is just pictures of fishing villages. The town report was printed with pictures of the devastation caused to our fishing community. The sign welcoming people to our town has a working waterfront banner attached. We aren't here just to use as props. We have real history and heritage tied to our lives here. Why you love it here is tied to the rich, diverse community that has grown it in this way. We don't need to be saved. Fishermen, for the most part, rarely ask for help and are the first to give or to help. The only failed warrant article was directly to help fishermen, and the message the town puts out doesn't make sense. I have 2 formal requests tonight. In the light of learning that we have no restrictions on non-resident or non-tax paying citizens joining committees and representing our town, I request that leadership add restrictions that only allow taxpayers or residents to serve. And my second request, the town should hold an annual festival, historical fishing learning events, or something to help people understand why fishing is so important for the future of Harpswell. Thank you.
I don't want there to
Right.
be misunderstandings. Whenever there's a secret ballot vote, there is a public hearing prior to that, similar to town meeting, where everyone's there and can discuss it. The only difference is the vote is sometime later, secret.
And just to clarify, the public hearing for the comp plan was during February vacation and was not given enough time to make any changes before the town meeting.
There will be another one.
That's where the mistrust starts, though. If you want us to come and have a voice, make sure that we can.
There will be another one. And if they revise the comp plan, there will be another public hearing.
All right, anybody else? I can't see any hands from where I'm at.
Jim Lochran from Harpswell Neck. Actually, I want to kind of agree with what Allison is saying. The whole philosophy of town meeting government is so the community can meet face to face and talk over important issues and make a decision while they're there. And that's really what transparency is about in a town meeting setting. And by taking these issues, the contentious issues or whatever, and having a couple of, yes, that's nice to have some feeling out meetings, if you will. But to do that in lieu of a true get-together, face-to-face discussion of the issues, followed by a vote, really kind of violates, if not the law, the intent of the town meeting form of government. So, you know, you talk about transparency and people should participate. And I like you, I was really kind of pumped at the town meeting, just saw all these people come in. And at one point, the place was overflowing, and I said, you know what? I don't care who votes for what. I'm willing to go along with whatever this group wants. You know, I mean, it was kind of a heartening thing. And I understand, okay, so it's never happened before. It's hard to plan for things that have never happened before. That's difficult. Is it? All right, I'm corrected. But I guess the point is this. If there's any way that we can switch this from a secret ballot into just having a regular town meeting with a couple of discussions, the comp plan's not going to be voted on now anyway, so that's going to keep down the participation or the, you know, whatever. And so we've got to look at the Mitchell Field admin building and help me out here. And the fire department, exactly. And those are both expensive, pressing issues. And I think it's only fair to the community that that be presented for their open discussion. Thanks.
All right, anybody else?
Yep.
Nope, here we-
Oh, yes.
Uh,
My name is Aaron Fuchs. I'm here as a private citizen, not as a representative of the Cundies Harbor Fire Department, although I happen to be on duty right now. I'm currently principal driver to Cundies Harbor Fire Rescue, and I had been on the board of the Oars and Bailey's Island Fire Department. Currently, the citizens of Harpswell are considering a $6.1 million investment in the future of fire rescue service. The idea of an additional fire station, I emphasize additional, not central, is part of the solution to the coverage problem in light of even decreasing numbers of volunteers. I have personally talked to many members of the community, and most do not have the time or inclination to get into the weeds about how fire rescue actually works. If the Select Board's current plan to have a secret ballot is kept, there won't be an adequate ability to have a town-wide discussion on this issue. Without a full and meaningful discussion of the issue, I am afraid most people will see only the cost and not the diminishing volunteer problem issue this solution plans to address. Finally, the pool of volunteers willing and able to become firefighters, EMT, and drivers is dwindling. The town population continues to get older. As this happens, more professionals will have to be hired. An additional station capable of holding more full-time firefighters, along with volunteers, seems the best way to continue to provide that necessary coverage. Unfortunately, the method that you have used, and I understand that we had to pass a budget, the method you have used to solve that problem has caused a very large other problem. And that is, we can have a public hearing, but the only people who are going to come to a public hearing are interested in those particular issues. Whereas, if we had a town-wide discussion, if we had another, as was suggested, town meeting with the vote there, then the various opinions on this could be openly discussed and the town could come to a rightful conclusion. Thank you.
One more, Kev.
Sorry, Glenn. Melinda Richter from Oars Island. I'd like to discuss putting things on the secret ballot. I was a little surprised when I watched the last selectmen's meeting to see that the two most contentious articles were going to secret ballot. And my predecessors who spoken were a lot more polite than I probably am going to be. According to what I've read in the Harpswell Anchor, they're all saying this fourth station's a done deal. I've actually heard one of our select board say, this fourth station's a done deal. And when I think about Curtis Memorial Library, how long we debated that for how many years, now it's on secret ballot because we think it's a done deal. And I'm a little upset that that's not, in essence, this new fourth station, in my opinion, is the beginning of public works for the town of Harpswell. And I think it deserves a bigger debate than what you are proposing to give to it. And I think it does, that particular article doesn't belong on secret ballot. I think it belongs, it's a basic of $6 million and then all the things that go with it. So I'm asking the select board to reconsider putting those items on the floor for debate and taking them off secret ballot. Thank you.
I want to say again, they will be debated. There will be a meet. We'll probably use the auditorium at the junior high. There'll be so many people there to discuss this. We just won't vote on it at the same time. That's all. It's no difference. In fact, usually there's a bigger turnout for a secret ballot vote because you have all day to vote. That's as a rule.
Aaron Fuchs again. One thing I want to point out is Melinda and I happen to be on opposite sides of the debate about the fire station, but we both agree that this was a terrible decision to not have this open discussion. And it's not the same to have a secret ballot as to have an open discussion and everybody hold up their cards and everybody be able to make all of those kind of comments. Anyway, I made my point. Thank you.
I'll say it again. You can make all of those comments. The opportunity will be there. It'll be televised, just like being on the floor of town meeting, except you don't vote then and there. That's all.
But the problem is that different group of
Well, it is a different dynamic. I will agree.
it's more than a dynamic. Other people out.
I gotta go to the mic.
Yep.
Go ahead.
This is changing how we deal, and we wanted to, the New England tradition is amazing. I've been to town meetings at 20 years here and 8 years in Vermont, and I just love it. And it allows our neighbors to talk to each other and have some sort of reasonable discussion, which is certainly lacking in other venues, shall I say. But at any rate, the point is that if you continue to use this method of the secret ballot plus a public hearing plus a secret ballot, it defeats the purpose of a town meeting.
And just to back that up, I think you're missing the point, is that we want to be informed. We want to be informed as a town when we're making a decision. When you make a secret ballot, it's just people coming in and they probably don't always know. They're just going to see that big number and vote it down. We're not even going to have a discussion about it. You are probably going to defeat it by putting it to secret ballot, honestly. And I think, like I said, it's worthy of the discussion, and the people voting on it are educated about what they're voting on.
I tend to agree to a point that the town meeting aspect does have more benefits than the secret ballot. And I do appreciate the town meeting aspect more than the secret ballot, but I just don't know if that's something that we can even accommodate.
When our alternative is to wait another year and have it next
Right.
town meeting.
I will say, I heard from a lot of people who weren't around, that wondering why it was not on a secret ballot. I've had people come to me that was afraid to vote for the fire department because they were from Morris and Bailey Allen, and they did not want to vote for it, publicly. So there's both worlds in this thing. And the fire departments have had 2 public hearings, mostly poorly attended. So I personally want to keep it on the ballot.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't have to make a decision tonight. I know it's coming up later on the agenda, and
Right.
you don't have to make a decision until next, or 2 weeks from tonight, what you want to put on a June ballot, if anything.
Yeah.
There is a secret ballot policy, so we'll make sure that's posted with your next agenda. It talks about some of the reasons why you might decide to put items on secret ballot. So you have more time to think about this. And ultimately, it is the municipal officers who decide whether or not something will be secret ballot or on the floor, and you could have a special town meeting if you didn't want to wait until the annual town meeting. So you do have options to consider.
Can we get some information on the next agenda on like what a special town meeting, just for my sake, I guess, probably more than probably the other two, like what the difference, if there's cost differences to it versus having a special town meeting versus having it on secret ballot, kind of a pro versus con type of thing, you get what I'm saying?
Spike Heibel, Harpswell Neck. When would we be, if we, for the June 10th, that means we have to have a public hearing on April 10th, is that correct?
No, the public hearing would be sometime between April 10th and June 10th.
Oh, we don't have to.
Right now, we're not
within
gonna-
60 days then?
Right,
Okay, gotcha.
yeah.
All right.
All's
Anybody
quiet.
else? Oh, quiet. All right, well, we'll move on then. Select board announcements.
Nope,
Matt, Dave, anything?
nothing.
We need volunteers still.
We always have.
Yeah.
All right, town administrators report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. I do want to ask the board to accept Jim Babarski's resignation tonight. Jim launched our communications position in Harpswell about 9 months ago, I think, and he did a fantastic job. It was a part-time position. Jim has some long-term goals that he's trying to fulfill, and he recently took a full-time job in the technology area. We're really pleased that he's been able to move on in that sense, but obviously it leaves us with a big void, and we'll be talking about how we move forward at your next meeting.
Move we accept with regret.
I second with regret.
Yeah, and I do want to say that in the interim, our deputy town administrator picks up a lot of the responsibilities that Jim Babarski
Now
had as
she's knowing, now
communications
she's realizing,
staffer.
right?
Yeah, so thank you, Terry, for that.
So,
I know there are many people in the room tonight who may be interested in the next
hold on,
bullet
we need
point.
to- we need to vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You call for a vote, Kev?
Yeah,
Okay,
you got a second?
all in favor, all right,
Aye.
okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So the next bullet point item has to do with a draft management agreement for Clark Cove. And my intention tonight was just to let the select board know that the town received this document this week. And I did reach out to a member of the neighborhood who kind of keeps people informed to say, my intent tonight was just to make everyone aware that we have received this document, that I will be working with our new recreation director, Katie Neal, to put together some type of community meeting so we can get input from people across the town, input from our town lands committee, people in the neighborhood, other people, because we think that's important to get that information and kind of feedback on this proposed plan. The town itself could not sign off on this plan. It would ultimately have to go to the voters. The voters would be the legislative body that would have to say that, you know, they want this to happen. So there's a process. This is, you know, early on, relatively speaking, although it did flow through the Town Lands Committee. This board had an initial plan, then there was a revised plan, and now we received this draft agreement. So maybe we're somewhere in the middle of this process, but that was really the point of putting it on tonight. Could you go to the mic, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Who I was before. You mentioned that you're going to put together some meetings, some more than one, I'm assuming?
You know,
Or-
really, at least one, perhaps more than one.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And in saying at this point, the only resolution has to come through a vote of the town. Is it not also true that it's within the purview of the select board to vote against pursuing this? They do have that power, do they not?
They could suggest that. Currently, I'm operating under the board's guidance that they wanted to take this to a town meeting eventually, so the staff has been working toward that
But
position.
if
toward that
board members
position.
decided they didn't want that, then
It
they're
would be-
free to, okay, so there is another,
The board gets to decide what it wants to put in front of
there's
the
another
voters. That's
theoretical
correct.
option then, yeah. Okay,
Correct.
all right. I just wanted to be sure
Yeah.
they weren't precluded from
That is true.
changing their minds.
We're currently operating under the board, authorizing the staff to work on this to get it to a point where it would come back to the board for consideration to go to a town meeting.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I sometimes wish I was the king of Harpswell and I could make those kinds of decisions, but it's the voters actually that need to make decisions on a lot of things. Like Mitchell Field, for example, the people of Harpswell own Mitchell Field, and it's not up to us to make decisions, but it's up to us to bring an agenda that you guys can vote on, that have all the information you need to do that. So this is state property, a little bit different. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All righty.
I do one thing, Ronnie Weston, Harpswell Neck. Just out of curiosity, how did this agreement, so-called agreement, drop in your lap this week?
This week, I reached out to the state months ago, and they said that they were very busy toward the end of 2024 working on their ARPA commitments, and they did not have time to work on this agreement. So they said they would get it to me as soon as they could in 2025, and I got it this week.
So they drafted it, Christie?
Yes, they did.
Okay. So I just want to make a preliminary comment in that all my years as an attorney and a business owner, I've never seen an agreement that uses the word endeavor. And so I would begin to look at the validity of that agreement, because endeavor means try. So if you try as a town and they don't like what you do, they can take that land back from you from the management agreement. So I think there are a lot more issues that need to be worked on in addition to something that is a real agreement, which this is not.
We appreciate that feedback. That's the kind of feedback we're looking for. Well, any and all feedback. Thank you.
Yep.
That's it. Oh, actually, one more thing. I did receive a communication from a resident of Harpswell who has had a problem with the shoreland zoning map and their property. They believe that it's been incorrectly zoned. It's an interior parcel with some potential wet area. And so they have asked the town for direction about how to get that taken care of. And I'm going to be working with the town planner on that particular issue. So I just
All right.
wanted to make a note of that.
Sounds appropriate.
Thank you.
All right. Consent agenda.
I move the consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes, the 2 committee resignations, and the authorization of the warrants.
Wait a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Auditor's report and the 2024 financial report.
So I just wanted to introduce RHR Smith and Company. Sam is here. He's our lead auditor. And Heather Hunter is here from RHR. Our 2024 financial statements have been done since February and posted on the website. And they're here to review that, and welcome both of you.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and, Sam, do you want to start before I pull up the PowerPoint?
Yeah, so like Terry mentioned, I'm Sam Oganoff. I was the audit manager for this year's audit. Heather Hunter is the director of audits for RHR, so she's joining us tonight. Just to start off, I just wanted to say you guys all received the highest opinion that we issue, which is an unmodified opinion. Along with the financial statements, we also issue a series of letters that we're required to. One of those being the SAS 114 letter, which the highlight of it being we had no findings or major disagreements within management. So that's always a good thing to be reported. I think that's pretty much it. Heather, if you want to share your screen.
Certainly. Sent the share request, so hopefully, there we go.
Wake up. There you go.
Happening.
Can you see the presentation all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. You always cross your fingers when you do that, so. Get this from the beginning. So again, my name is Heather Hunter. Good evening. Here from RHR Smith. And we completed the audit, as Sam had mentioned. We'll start out with the governmental funds, the balance sheet. I will offer that with the town of Harpswell, the bulk of your activity falls within the general fund. So even if you look at the entity-wide statement, which are the statements that come right before this particular statement in your financial audit, the lion's share is going to be repeated in this balance sheet for the general fund because it makes such a majority of the activity of your municipal financial structure. I would also suggest that if you want a quick snapshot of the financial information, that the management discussion and analysis is a good way to kind of get the Cliff Note version of where the finances are falling at the end of the fiscal year. So as you can see in this particular case, your total assets were just under $8 million for the general fund. The bulk of that is categorized as cash. So you're in a very liquid position for your municipality. So that is definitely a healthy area or place to be. Your total liabilities were $1.3 million. They did increase a bit this year. The bulk of that was in the interfund payables. And that is to other funds where your custodial cash is kept on general fund. And as payments are made and processed, they will owe that cash or that money to other funds. And you will see that on those funds offset in the interfund receivable. Likewise, you have total fund balance of $6,512,768. The portion of that fund that you have the greatest flexibility in is your unassigned fund balance, which totals just over $4.1 million. This side shows how your cash has changed. You've always hovered right around that $7 million mark. And you see you had, about a 400,000 or uptick in the end of this fiscal year. Some of that timing could also be attributed to not only accounts payable and salaries payable at the end of the year. So you do see fluctuation from time to time with that as well. Your accounts receivable, in this case, most of that is going to be taxes, hovered right around $600,000 at year end, and that is in line with what you have experienced in the past. And again, your fluctuation that you see in that liability at year end, this slide probably highlights that the most, where you had the jump in this year of 131,000 in accounts payable versus 36,000 that you experienced at the end of last fiscal year. The three portions of fund balance, your non-spendable, your assigned, and committed, are the portions of fund balance that are a little tricky to use. In the case of non-spendable, that is not able to be spent, as the name describes. That could be inventory, prepaid assets, and so forth. Assigned and committed are both regulatory or through the public process, amounts that have been dedicated for particular purposes. So whatever process that was used, like if it's a grant application that may be required to stay with those funds, if it's a vote that was taken at town meeting, it will take a vote to undo that. So you see in this particular slide, you have $2.3 million of funds that fall in this category. Hang on. And then the unassigned fund balance that we talked about. I'm happy to say this unassigned balance of just under $4.2 million represents about 22% of your total expenditures for the year, which means you have about 2.5 months worth of fund balance in reserves, which is a nice healthy amount. Typically, you see this range, our good target is at least 15% is probably a best practice. So you exceed that at the 22%. So that, again, is a nice healthy fund balance to give you greater flexibility going into whatever endeavors the town chooses to pursue. This is your statement of revenue, expenditure, and transfer. It's similar to private sector's profit and loss statement. In this particular case, you have revenues of $19 million. The bulk of that obviously is made up of your local property and real estate taxes. Expenditures total $18,760,708. Processing your other financial sources and uses, you had a slight decrease of $15,000 in your fund balance for this fiscal year. I will also highlight on this screen your road projects. You had three major funds, and one being the road projects, and that is the accumulation, obviously, for road projects out there. You voted on it. Increase almost double of what you funded last year. So you see the operating transfer in of $550,000 for this particular capital outlay fund. And this kind of shows you a chart of your revenue sources, obviously, highlighting what a tremendous contributing factor taxes have on your municipality and the collection of those. Likewise, you are no different from any other municipality in the state of Maine, where over 50% of your budget goes to support education of the local public schools. So that is highlighted on this pie chart as well. And then you'll see your other breakdowns with general government, public works, and public safety all hovering around that 10% mark. So a couple highlights you did have, if you looked at your budget to actual, you will see that you have a surplus when you're comparing both revenue and expenditure. So again, that helped assist with your increase in fund, the overall fund balance and earnings. You did not take out any debt this year, so you are scheduled to continue pay down. So you are in a very liquid and fluent financial position as at the end of the year. So at this point, I will turn it back to Sam if he has any questions
Thanks,
or
Heather.
comments that you want to add.
The last comment I wanted to add was just about the management letter. We issue any recommendations we have at the end of the year based on what we've seen throughout our testing. And I'm pleased to report that we had no management letter comments this year. So I want to say kudos to Terry and Christy and their entire team. I know a lot of hard work goes in on their end as well as ours, and it shows.
So at this point, it concludes our presentation. We'd be happy to address any questions that anybody may have.
I have none.
I don't have any.
I just wanted to know, typically, our year end is December 31st. We have our financial statements. We prepare our own financial statements in January. The audit takes place typically the third week in January, all to accommodate a March town meeting, so our financials can be available for our people, so they are taxpayers, so they'll know our financial position. Typically, the auditors do come sooner, but knowing that we were going to have a new selectman this year, did schedule a little later, so I wanted to just point out that we do have a new selectman, and that's one reason why I had you folks come a little later this year. I think that that's a good introduction for Matt to our financials, and I don't know if anybody has any questions, but I just want to thank you both very much, and Sam, you know, you're great to work with, and thank you for your work, and we look forward to next year.
I want to say thank you to you guys, and thank you and congratulations to our staff.
I want to say a lot of that
Mostly
goes to
Terry.
Terry Guyette, our treasurer, and our deputy town manager.
Wow, thank you.
I'm sure she. Oops. All right. We all set there?
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
Terry.
evening.
You too.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
All right. Consider referendum items 10th, 5, Mitchell Field, and $6 million borrowing for Central Emergency Services Building.
So again, we just laid out the two articles that we had understood from the board that you were considering for a June referendum. We also did receive a request from the Mitchell Field Administration Building Group that they would like to discuss with the board tonight some of their ideas, or they wanted to be able to talk to you tonight about their proposal. And so I think the floor is open for that.
Yeah.
Well, going back to David's remark earlier about the voting being open all day makes a huge difference in how many people can actually vote that day. You've got, 8 hours of possibility you have a chance to go in there and vote for either one of these items, and plus the school budget, by the way.
Right.
Can you hold a public hearing and a vote on the same day?
No.
Not generally, no.
No, it's 60 days before.
Good.
Close as we can get it.
Yeah.
All right, I'm Lily Ott, and I work with the Administration Building Group, working to see a recreation center go into Building 126. And as we had talked about earlier and talked about this week with the Mitchell Field Committee, one of the most recent reports of I think the 9 reports that the town has had done on Mitchell Field since 2001, when Mitchell Field became part of Harpswell, is a report from Beacon Environmental Consultant, And this has, according to both state and federal regulations, the contaminants that are currently in the administration building have to be removed before anything at all can happen at that building, whether it's demolition or whether it's remodeling or anything at all. And according to the Beacon people, this will take at least a year. And it may take longer than that because there will be some grants applied for. There is some additional work in terms of transport of lead issues that are going to have to be moved farther than the initial proposal had said. And so what our group was asking for is since nothing will be able to be done of major significance on that building before at least March and probably later of 2026, that we just use the time and money now for the remediation itself. And then next year, have a chance to take a vote on whether our group has been able to gather enough support to put in the proposal that we have had, which is to take that building and take the center part down at our expense and put in 2 bathrooms, which have been requested since the very beginning of time with the reports from the town, and then have the other section, the side section that is more northern, turned into a larger facility for meetings that would have some flexibility for things like when the concerts at Mitchell Field are rained out, that we'd have an opportunity to move them right across the way and have them there and not have to set up a rain date, and also would have opportunity for recreation within the spaces. For example, when Harpswell Aging at Home, now we've outgrown all the spaces that we've had our lunch with friends, and we would be able to use that space. And there's some other groups that in town that would like to be able to rent a larger space. And so we'd like to have that year just to tighten up that proposal, to work with the Mitchell Field on any adaptation, with Mitchell Field Committee and others in the public to go ahead with that. And one thing we did note, that one of the last reports that was received by the town was the MCOG report, which said basically, let's see what the people want. And we know the Mitchell Field Committee would very much like to tear the building down, and they say that there's issues, it's just kicking the can down the road. Well, it is, but that building's been there for 70 years, and what's one more year at this point when we have some people that are committed both with money and with ideas to see this building utilized the way every single one of the consultant reports that have been paid for have suggested this as a very good use of that building. And the central piece that I think is the most important is that it would save the town money. Our amendment says to reduce the expenditure this year and see how we can do with our own fundraising. And then if our fundraising is successful, we would pay for the work in 27, and the town would not have to.
Hang on, quick question for you while you're still up there. How long have you guys been at this?
Since September of 24.
Any idea, do you have any amount of funds dedicated?
Well, we
at
have
this point?
65,000 committed, and we have a bunch of other people who are saying, I'd be really interested in this, but I want to see a commitment. I want to see that it's possible.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's my turn. Don Miskip, Mitchell Field Committee Chair, Mitchell Field Steward. We took a vote after looking at the waterfront. Our primary focus for the committee has been on a boat launch, which is in the final phase here. We're waiting on final drawings. We have the permits. We're waiting for approval. And if we go according to schedule, we hope to have a boat launch at Mitchell Field in the spring of 2026. One of the things that the committee looked at as we went through this process is what changes are going to happen at the waterfront, because the boat launch includes the causeway. This building sits right in front of that causeway. And in their design, they want to add a stage area out front of those garages. We looked at this a long time ago and said the boat launch and the traffic associated with it will conflict with beach traffic unless we have some options. We took a vote in August of last year on the committee by 8-1 saying we need the building to come down. It was supposed to be in the November ballot, if I'm correct. It was then deferred to town meeting. Now we want to defer it to next year. We need a decision on this building so that we can understand what's going to happen at the waterfront. I don't want to put a boat launch in, and then a year and a half from now, we're going to decide whether the building stays or goes while we've got traffic and we've got beachgoers, and we have no ability to do anything else down there. Nobody has come to the committee throughout these processes from the very first start and said, why do you want the building down? Because we want to have a clean slate in order to decide what changes we'll have to make at the waterfront to keep the beachgoers separate from the boat launch traffic and be able to control traffic flow. This building sits right where we want to make those kinds of changes, and there is no additional parking. We're talking about having a building to do events, whether it's weddings or conferences that they called for, all these other things. There's no additional parking. You have the parking that's there right now. And in the summertime, it's full. And none of those people are going in that building. So, and then their proposal is to close the road in front of the building. I don't know what we do with traffic at that point based on what we do now. So we submitted a memo to the select board after we held a meeting and we met with the group on Monday. We have not changed our position. We would like a decision sooner than later. We don't want to defer till next year because then we can't do any sort of an operations planning development if we don't know what's happening to the building when we already have the boat launch. And if we get a decision now, then everybody knows what we're doing. Questions?
Do you have any idea why it was pushed from the November election, or you, Christie, maybe? Do we know why?
The original proposal that we received from the town to look at the questions that were going to appear on the ballot for November, one was to authorize them to negotiate with a group unnamed to look at reusing. There was a second question behind it that said demolish the building. And the committee looked at that and said, okay, what happens if both got approved? So we recommended adding a second sentence to the demolition question that said demolition would occur in one of two scenarios. If the first question was voted down, demolition process, the remediation of the hazmat, and then the demolition of the building would begin immediately. If that was approved, it was going to authorize them, I think, 6 months, or I think it proposed a year. We recommended 6 months because we were just moving everything down the road again. If at the end of 6 months they had not met the criteria that the town established, then demolition could begin at that point. Then they made a decision that those questions would come out and there would only be a demolition question for a town meeting. Is my understanding, Christie.
Yeah, I mean, I can't recall if we had everything ready 60 days in advance of that November date, because again, you can't put anything on a referendum or secret ballot unless it's provided to the clerk 60 days in advance of that voting date.
Right.
So I don't know if we hit that date or we were getting close to it, and I think the select board said, let's put this on the March town meeting warrant.
Right.
That seemed to be the direction they wanted to go.
Yep.
Yep.
All right.
Any other questions? And I'll take it from Chairman Johnson, who said about the comp plan, I don't want to vote on it twice. So we're looking for a vote. The ultimate goal here is a decision on the building. Whether we remediate now and do it later, or whatnot, from our standpoint of planning, we would like a decision now.
All right, so,
Hang on.
So my question, Allison Hawks, Connie's Harbor, I haven't read much up on this, but if this group wants to attain the building, what does that mean? Are we landlords? Are we leasing the property?
That's.
We're
potentially-
selling it, or they're just
not
taking it
selling.
over?
It's potentially leasing to an entity.
Their proposal is to form a nonprofit and then take it over, the nonprofit.
Okay. Well, I'm never for the town being landlords, so that's just my personal opinion. But just listening to this, it sounds like we'd have a private entity taking it over just to benefit some, when it's a town-owned property that benefits many, that's owned by us all, and then we could all use it. And anything that restricts that from all the townspeople, that doesn't allow all of us to use it, I don't think is good for the town of Harpswell.
I haven't seen any restrictions, so, but they can speak better for it.
Closing off the road is a restriction.
Spike Heibel, Harpswell Neck. We just heard a really great presentation from our auditor about how well this town does managing its finances. And I said this the other night, and I was going to say it at town meeting. The town does a great job of keeping things in check. And at town meeting recently, we voted to use unexpended funds to do a number of projects. And we also did it, as we all do every year, at the end, we voted to reduce the tax burden on the taxpayers by putting some of that unexpended funds towards that. So the town has the money to do the demolition of the building. It's not going to raise our taxes. It's not going to require a new tax. The money is there, thanks to you guys. The town also can apply for, and will apply for, I would assume, for grant funding for remediation from DEP or EPA, or maybe it's a combination. But anyway, there are funds, what sounds like up to $50,000 to assist with the project. So you go from the maximum of $230,000, which is what the warrant article proposes, down to $180,000. That starts to feel like a pretty good deal. And we have the money. We have the money sitting available to spend. We don't have to do any financial trickery to make this happen. My other point about the removal of the building fundamentally is that all the roads, you come in one road at the top of the field, you can go right, you can go left, you can go straight down, you can go through the woods, you can go through the fields, but you end up at the waterfront. The waterfront is the most valuable piece of that property, and it's pinched by a building which is 70 years old. It hasn't been used in 40 years. It has hazardous materials in it, and it's decaying. But most importantly, it should come down because we need the opportunity, and should take the opportunity, to open up the space at the waterfront and give people more room to use it as they would like to. It also assists with the boat launch in that the traffic going in and out can be better routed than it would be with the building in place. And the admin building group has said on any number of occasions that the building will come down and it will be a parking lot. That has never been the intention, to make that a parking lot. The intention would be to make it green space. So that's what I have to add. Thanks.
Dorothy Rosenberg, South Harpswell. To the first point that was just made, $150,000 is less than $230,000. I would assume that any money that the town can get, as I understand it, would be for the remediation, which means getting rid of the toxic materials, which has to be done before anything can be done to dispose of the building. It can't be leased, it can't be rented, it can't be demolished, it can't be remodeled. So the question really, as far as financing goes, is weighing the difference between spending $150,000 to remediate the building and allowing a group to raise money to turn it into something that can be used by the public. The intention is not to make it a private building. The purpose of earning any money would be to pay for the expenses of maintaining it, but to make it an open building for use by the public for recreational and educational activities. Or spending $230,000 in order to have nothing. That's really the choice that we're asking to make open to the voters, rather than only offering them the option of demolishing it. Secondly, in terms of the boat ramp, all of the drawings that I've seen thus far of the plans for the boat ramp route the traffic around to the north. This makes perfectly good sense, because if you have a swimming beach to the south, you don't want boat trailers and boat traffic and so forth coming from the south and obviously conflicting with swimmers, picnickers, people using the beach. It's a very good idea to have traffic moving in one direction and not in the other direction. In terms of parking, it seems to me that the parking problem is going to be caused or related to the use of the boat ramp. And if the traffic is coming from the north, that's probably the direction where the parking should also be. These are not, I mean, it's easier to talk about this if you have a picture of it in front of you, but there's actually no conflict. All of the pictures that I've seen of the plans for the boat ramp are around, they don't conflict with the building. If there's a problem with a stage being on the front of the building, there doesn't have to be a stage on the front of the building, because all of the plans on what would be done with it are open to discussion, and there's not going to be any final decision about what specifically would go there until after A, it's clarified that there is an interest in trying to keep it, and B, broad discussions with the community as to what they would like it to do and be and look like. Which is why we're asking, oh, and secondly, it's the end of March. As far as I understand, there hasn't been a contract yet to build the boat ramp. I understand that everyone would like to have things that are to be built really, really fast, but I would be somewhat surprised if the boat ramp were in operation by next March. Meaning that a decision, if it is delayed for a year, is not really going to interfere with anything except the ability to conceptualize the waterfront at Mitchell Field as an empty space. Thank you.
Mike Heibel again. I think there's a philosophical point that we really need to keep in mind. I'm sure a lot of people in this room have been to Mitchell Field and, enjoy what it offers. To say that we would have nothing at the waterfront because we took the building down is a gross misunderstanding about what the waterfront is like at Mitchell Field and how good it is for the public to use in a variety of ways. And I believe the previous speaker said recently that her hope was there would be no development at all at Mitchell Field anywhere. But now the boat launch is coming in, which she's not in favor of. If you're not in favor of development at Mitchell Field through your past discussions, then why would you keep a building which is going to create conflict of use at the waterfront?
It's not a good idea to paraphrase things that someone has not said as being something that they have said. And I voted for funding for the boat ramp because I think it's important to have it there for public use, which is the same reason that I'm arguing in favor of keeping the admin building so that it's there for public use. And I'm not putting words into the mouth of Mr. Heibel. I believe he's quite capable of speaking for himself, and so am I.
Okay, go ahead.
Just one thing I thought about sitting here. It's been I mean, my son turned 12 this year, and I used to sit at that very table with my newborn son. He's 12. We've talked about this for over a decade, about building a new boat launch over there. I mean, we have been at this ridiculous amounts of time. We could have done this a long time ago, and it cost us a lot less money. And the boat ramp is for everybody in town. It encompasses everybody being able to use that. That's what I think the town has been envisioning for a long time. And when Don mentions 2026, I was ready to jump up out of my chair because we have been talking about this entirely way too freaking long. Get this done. There's no time for all this other stuff. This has been on the table for a long time at Mitchell Field. And we know what we need to do to get the work done. We need to spend the money and do what the committee is asking us to do. That's why we make these committees.
For me, this boils down to one thing, that this is not this board's decision to make what happens to the administration building. That's the voters of Harpswell, because it belongs to them. And if we offer them a opportunity to demolish the building and that's voted down, we're back to where we started. So we need some way to move forward and give everyone the information they need to make that final decision. And I think we're pretty close. It sounds like we're pretty close. But for us to decide to put only demolition on the ballot may put us right back where we were. So I think we need to do something that either delays it for a year or gives the other group a chance to have a vote on it. Gives the voters an opportunity to decide one way or the other.
I think we could look at language of the question potentially. I think it comes down to one thing too. Do we save the building or do we tear it down? And I think we can potentially maybe reword the article question so it still gives the voters the information they need to decide that, and they make that decision right then and there. And then your group would know, whether the town wanted to save it and supported your group going forward, and if the town doesn't want to save it, we know right then and there. That's my thoughts on it.
Well, first of all, it's not my group.
I was referring to the people in the audience.
I've advised them, but.
Well, let me get a word in there.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I think we should get the Fire and Rescue Committee and the Mitchell Field Group to set up public hearings. Let's get it done. Let everybody present their case, and let's get this thing to the vote. And it's going off 21 years, and there is time for the Mitchell Field Group to make their case, and same thing with the Central Emergency Building. They've had 3 or 4 public meetings, but maybe we should organize 2 right at the school again before before the 9th of April to get it done. We've talked about this before, actually over and over and over. And I think it's time to move on it. And it's got a chance for the group to make their case.
The problem is we have very short time to get it on the ballot for June, if that's what we want to do.
Well, we decided we're going to put it on the ballot in June, and it's time for a public hearing on both of these items between now and then.
But if we leave it as it is and it's voted down, we're back where we started. See what I'm saying?
No.
I don't either.
If we leave it as it is to demolish and that's turned down, we're back where we started. There needs to be an opportunity to go one way or the other. Not a stop sign.
No, I think this is it. The town will have a chance on June 10th to vote to demolish. And same thing with the fire station. They can turn that down the same day.
I see what Dave's saying, though. What if the town votes not to demolish the admin building, Kevin? You know what I mean? What is...
Well, and then we go back to the group that's, got to raise $1.5 million, which I got to be honest, to say skeptical doesn't even cover it. But I'm for moving it along, getting the public hearings out of the way.
I agree.
Make sure they're well attended. Maybe there was a schoolhouse or maybe a community school. But we have time right now to get the dates, talk to the committee chairs. Don Bisco's there. I get a hold of Ben Wallace.
Melinda's at the mic.
Melinda's at
see
the
that.
mic, Kevin.
Melinda,
What difference does it make if we have a hearing, then a vote later on? Why don't we just do the whole thing the same day, at the same public hearing? Why are we doing a hearing one day, a vote another day? Let's just do a hearing and a vote, and a hearing and a vote, all at the same meeting. Why, what's the gist is not the right, but what's the deal with, why does it have to, those two items have to go, other than it's at the selectmen's bequest, why does it have to go to that kind of vote? Why can't we just all do it in the same day? I just don't understand. That's it.
well, for 60 days before the meeting, before the vote. That's why we have an April 10th deadline.
We could have a special town meeting where everyone is in one place and votes at the same time. We could do that. It's we could set that up.
Aaron Fuchs again. I endorse Melinda's suggestion. The idea that we can have an actual discussion, back and forth, up and down, everybody's positions laid out in front of everybody, and then we all vote and it's done. And what's going to happen is if you have a hearing one time and a vote another time, some people's calendars are not going to be at one, they're not going to be at the other, and we're going to wind up with a situation where we have uninformed vote. I'm really concerned that if my side, if you will, cannot make the case publicly for the additional fire station, it will be voted down simply based on the idea that, hey, this is going to cost a lot of money, and why do they need it? And nobody's, has a chance to really to discuss that. So I would certainly like to be able to make our case, my case, and Melinda get to make her case in front of everybody, and then we decide like we do at town meeting.
We have done that in public hearings. It did not fill a gymnasium.
If we hold a special town meeting, are we still required to have a public hearing like we are if it's a referendum question?
No, special town meeting, just
So
on the floor.
We could eliminate the public hearings if we had the town meeting then.
Correct.
But you won't have the amount of voters that you would have, like David mentioned earlier. If the vote is lasting, if it's a secret ballot, you can vote all day from the time the polls open to the time polls close.
We thought that though on Saturday, March 8th, and they showed up.
Yeah, well, you have three big items on there, like I say.
Right, that's why they all showed up though, I mean.
Hey, not everybody talking at once.
I think I think people might show up again, Kevin, for if we had at least two of those big items for a special town meeting, and we could eliminate the public hearings, because I'm in full agreement. Nobody shows up to public hearings. I don't know why, and usually people don't show up to town meetings either. But
Well, I think they would for this.
I think this one they would.
Whoa.
David?
I think they would show up for the public hearing on these two issues.
You have heard from a number of people on this issue tonight, and I've heard no one speak in favor of a secret ballot.
Correct.
I've heard everyone in this audience has gotten up saying they don't want a secret ballot and that they greatly prefer a public meeting, which again is our form of government. This gentleman is absolutely correct. He should have the opportunity to get up in front of the people who are interested enough to come to vote that day and make his case. Everyone should be able to make their case in a public forum. And yes, if you have two, so maybe it's going to be a long afternoon or a long morning. But I think, you make good points. Yes, you can show up here and then you can show up somewhere else again to vote. and then you can go to this other meeting, and then you can go somewhere else again to vote. You're asking people to go to 4 different things. It could all be done in one trip. A secret ballot, to use a phrase, just doesn't pass the smell test. It just is wrong. It's not what New England government is about. I mean, I grew up in a town that had a public meeting form of government, and my parents would leave at 9 or 10 in the morning, and they often wouldn't get home until 6 or 7 at night. I mean, they were long, they were contentious, but they worked. And I think being afraid of people discussing things in public like that, or at least that's the perception when you want to do a secret ballot. So I would encourage the board to rethink their position, and I think a lot of people here would agree with that. Thank you.
We could hold a special town meeting. We could do that.
The one thing that does make me nervous about it, though, that you alluded to, is you certainly, I think, get more turnout if people can just show up and vote whenever. And I think the only way we can potentially account for that is to schedule the town meeting with enough notice, that people could account for said town meeting. So
Right.
that's,
Well, there would be a lot of notice, yeah.
yeah. That's,
Well, I'm personally sticking to my guns, and I want to have the public hearings. I want to have the vote on June 10th. We've had a lot of discussion about this, and I think you'll get a much better voter turnout when they don't have to be at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at the school, or, they get something to do in the morning. Then they get till 5 o'clock in the afternoon, voting done. So my vote is we stick to our guns.
And I still want to say, if it's left the way it is to demolish only, and that's turned down, we're back where we are, and we're not moving forward at all.
Well, then we take it from there if they vote not to tear it down.
Right, but that puts us back where we were. We're, with no decision made.
Well, no, then we'll know that the town wants to save the building. Then it's a different ballgame. Same with the fire barn. The fire department, they turned that down. I'm sure you'll see it again.
Frank D'Agostino, Great Island. Wasn't the boat launch? I hate the term secret. Going into a voting booth and voting is just as traditional as town meetings. And I think that if we're going to do this, more people will participate in a ballot situation. I also think that it should be an either-or warrant so that we get to vote. Are you in favor of demolition? Or are you in favor of giving this group a chance to rehab the building? It should be an either-or warrant, not just one thing. So that when the people take their time and come to vote in the booth without pressure of having to hold it up in front of neighbors and friends that may be pressuring you, you go in, you vote, and it's done. The way this is being left, we're going to go in and vote either for the warrant to destroy or no. And then if it's no, then we start this whole thing over again. Let's cut it short. It should be A or B on that ballot question. Thank you.
Aaron Freaks again in response. We've conflated two issues now. One is whether we should have an open meeting where all the sides, since there's a lot of town interest, as we saw with the attendance at the town meeting, and separately, or part of this, is the fact that the way the warrant is structured for the demolition of the building should maybe be changed. I mean, some people look saying that we want an either or, which could certainly be done, but that is not have any bearing on the fact of whether we have an open town meeting where people get to discuss the issue and bring out the nuances of these contentious issues, because there are nuances. And I'm afraid on all of these issues that if folks don't get an opportunity to hear the nuances, the pros and the cons, that we're going to have sort of knee-jerk votes, and that is not going to be beneficial to the town.
All right. Hey, I want to move this along right now. Matt and Dave, where do you stand on it?
I'm sorry, if I could just refute what this gentleman said.
No.
Not refute, but I just like to ask this question to the board. Do we get greater voter participation when people go on a ballot or at a town meeting?
Secret ballot generally gives us more of a turnout. And I want to reiterate, it will be a town meeting, exactly like town meeting, the discussion, the pros and the cons. The only difference is you don't vote right then and there. You're not intimidated by your neighbors, as you were saying. You vote, nobody knows how you voted.
So that way we get the best of both worlds. We get the give and take of a town meeting with people coming up with their ideas and their positions, and then we get greater voter participation on the question.
Right. We would certainly assure that there's plenty of opportunity for discussion. They'll be televised. It will be in every way we can get it out to you. And you have an opportunity to be in the same room with a large crowd to discuss this issue, the pros and the cons, and what you think and what you don't think. The only difference is you don't put your hand up right then and there. You vote in the secret ballot maybe 2 weeks later or a week.
Well, if it means greater voter participation, to me, that's more democratic, and that's the route we should take. Thank you.
All right. Matt and Dave, where are you on this? You know where I stand. Where are you two?
Well, having been involved in government for town government for many, many years and attended many town meetings, many public hearings, been participated in a lot of secret ballot votes, I can tell you that moving forward with a secret ballot vote will have a greater voter turnout. You'll have every opportunity to discuss it, just as you do at town meeting. And my feeling is a secret ballot vote is probably the way to go.
Matt?
Being new to town government,
Lucky.
I agree with what David said, that I do think overall you do get better participation via secret ballot and stuff like that. That being said, I have lived in this town a long time, and that's only the second time I've ever seen that many people show up to a town meeting. So people clearly had something they wanted to say there. They didn't get a chance to say it. And I don't feel as though we would be doing them justice by not giving... I like that atmosphere of town meeting where you get to sit there and debate it and then vote, with all the information right at your fingertips instead of being able to go back. So I like the idea of a special town meeting. But I am outvoted.
We haven't voted yet.
I'll make the motion that we stick with our game plan, have public hearings, and go over a June 10th ballot vote. There's my motion.
I will second that with an assurance that we will have every single opportunity to discuss this en masse with large groups of people, if we have to do it twice.
Yep. All right. All in favor?
I'll vote in favor if we can make the public hearing as close to physically, technically possible to the vote as we can. At least one of them. You get what I'm saying?
We do have to follow statute.
Right, I get that.
And the thing about the referendum or secret ballot, whatever term you want to use, absentee ballots will be available 30 days prior to June 10th. So we have to think about when we want to hold the public hearing and where we want to hold the public hearing.
So in other words, you could begin to vote immediately after the public hearing if we hold it 30 days prior to the vote. You may be able to vote in the absentee ballot immediately, or wait until the day.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think we should do it something like that.
And then I think we need guidance from this board about where would you want that public hearing?
I think we should use the Orion, frankly.
Are we going to do them separately, or are we going to do them both at the same time?
We can do them together. We can do them together and do it at the Orion.
I don't think we're going to get as many people. The comp plan's not involved in this, and if I had to guess at a town meeting that 80% of the crowd there was about the comp plan. That everything I was hearing from the crowd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, if we get a chance, I'm fine doing them both together.
Dawn's at the mic.
One of the things we discussed is whether everybody can show up for that one meeting. So if we're going to do this with public meetings, I would recommend, and we did this when we were developing the boat launch years ago, we did 3 meetings. One over in West Harpswell, one at Oars and Bailey Island Schoolhouse, and one at the Cundy's Harbor Community Center. Because we're in June or close to it, the fishermen are going to be working, and it's going to be tough. So we need to provide different times and opportunities, different days, so that people can get there.
Well, the statute requires one public hearing for
Okay.
a referendum ballot, so, I mean, we can have other ones, but there's one that's got to be the statutorily required one.
Understand.
And I don't know if that will impact attendance at others.
I just, I'm looking at from the standpoint of making sure that everybody has an opportunity. We're working, it's June, summer, the whole 9 yards.
Right, yeah.
Quick question, Christie. Once we hold that statutory hearing, can we hold other hearings inside of that date once we meet the statutory requirement?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need the one.
Yep.
All right.
We gotta
Are we gonna-
thing. Yeah, we still have to technically vote.
Yeah, we have a motion and second on the floor.
Yeah,
Wait a minute.
All in favor?
Go to the mic. Wait, hold on a second.
Go ahead.
Lily's headed to the mic.
Sorry about that.
And one more question, sorry. I understand you're voting about the hearings and the voting, but what about the wording for the amendment? Isn't that a separate issue that you haven't decided yet?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll vote. I
Okay.
think we can vote now.
We're ready.
Any more discussion? I don't want. All right.
You kind of get cut off there, but that's, yeah.
Yeah, what he was saying.
But we know what you're doing.
I'm in another part of the world.
So the other question is the warrants and how they're worded.
Let's
On the $6 million bond, the staff is now recommending that the fiscal note be prepared for a 20-year period. We received some feedback on the 25-year period. It's not a legally binding fiscal note, but it gives the voters a sense of what the potential interest cost could be and what the town's current indebtedness is. All of that information is in the fiscal note. So that would be one change that the staff would recommend for that particular bond article. Other than that, we leave, we wanted to get that out there, but we're taking no position on.
You need
your
a
other-
vote on that or a hand? Or
Well, I think at some point, we need to
Nod.
know what you want on that ballot.
Well, I think what you've
and-
suggested is good. I
agree.
I want the voters to have every single piece of information they can get, particularly on a $6 million bond. So I think what you're saying, and for a 20-year period, is I will go along with that. In fact, I want to have you reiterate what you said, but you know what you said, and I will move that.
I'll second it.
Well, as long as she knows what she said.
All right, all in favor?
Yeah, aye.
And now for the administration building. I still think if it's voted down, we're back where we started, and we're not moving forward. And I think we would all like to move forward in one way or another. I would like to see something. I don't think a single question will do it. I think 2 questions: one to demolish and one to save. And exactly how the wording will be. I mean, the administration group. Go ahead, Phil. The administration group has suggested wording that will simply remove demolish. And there again, it's.
What?
Philip Connor, Nick. Why would we put the warrant in concrete here when you're going to have a hearing that's going to bring out possibly new ideas. Why wouldn't you let that develop from those meetings?
Well, the public hearing is based on a warrant article as it's written. So,
It's on an issue. I mean, it's not, it's on the issue of how to handle that problem, but both of them.
well, this is what we have to decide tonight.
Okay, I would suggest that you
Or at least
have the
before the
meetings
next
about
meeting.
the issue.
You could decide
got
in
2 more
2 weeks
weeks.
if you
2 more
need
weeks.
more time on that one.
Why
Okay,
would you,
well-
why would you have a decision on what you're gonna decide that you're gonna have a meeting about? Why meet? You already decided.
We have to decide on the question before the public hearing just by law. So that's what the public hearing will be on, is that question that we
Why
decide
wouldn't the
on.
question be the issue of whether to tear down or?
That could end up being what we decide to have
And
for a
that's-
question.
All right, I move that we put this particular question on our next meeting 2 weeks from now.
I second. I would like more
We have a
time.
chance to
Yeah.
harden it up a little
I'll
bit.
second that one.
All right, all in favor?
I just have one more thing.
Sorry.
Um,
Yeah.
Actually, I lost my thought, never mind.
I know how that works.
Okay, so I guess we're ready to vote.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Does the, no, never mind, sorry. It's done, I'm done.
It gets worse, trust me.
Oh, what I wanted to ask, does it move it for?
Go to-
Just trying
I'm
to,
gonna write it down so I don't forget
good
it.
idea.
There you go.
Spike Heibel, can you just clarify what you just voted on? Kevin is getting cut out, and so I want to make sure we all understand what you
We
just
voted
voted
to
on.
postpone the wording of the administration building article until next meeting, 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
And after that, it'll be too late. That's our deadline.
Allison, third time?
She's writing it, so she doesn't forget before she gets up there.
Is this a public comment question, because we can move on while you're...
If the
Yeah, we'll move
building
on.
is demolished or not, does it keep the project that the committee wants to move forward, does it keep it from moving forward?
The boat
That
launch?
was my,
Yeah, so
No.
if the building is not demolished, does it keep that project from moving forward?
No, the boat launch can still be built.
Even from what the drawings that I've seen that the committee's represented?
Yeah, in fact, the entire pier was torn down going out on that causeway. The building was not in the way. It used the road, which is now intended to be used for the boat launch, which goes around the back of the building. So it shouldn't be a detriment to the completing the boat launch.
all righty. We good?
I hope so.
I think so.
Letters of support for the National Estuary Program grant regarding Long Marsh.
So I would like to invite Mary Ann Naif, if she's
wanna-
able, the chair
wanna-
of our Conservation Commission, to speak to this issue. She's been involved in establishing this letter of support, finding out about the grant program through her many connections, and she is going to speak to the context and background of this item.
Hi, Mary Ann Naif, the Conservation Commission, and actually Marine Resources as well.
Oh, thank you.
Both of us, or both of them. For those who, we're talking about history here tonight. Most of us know about Long Marsh, and the history of Long Marsh actually was, it was used for saltang years and years and years ago, which the cutting and what they did to drain it out so they could cut has altered the marsh to where it is not as healthy as it would be if it flushed the way it used to. This particular project proposes bringing it back and restoring it so that it'll do a better job of flowing in and out, as well as marshes are really, really good carbon sinks. So it is also going to enhance carbon sequestering ability. The grant is to design the fundamentals of how it will be done by an engineer, and also 1 year of mitigation to start making the changes. Casco Bay Estuary Partnership, who has done a lot of work on the marsh, is one of the applicants of this very large grant that is taking in 4 other marshes, or 3 other marshes in the state. We were asked about our feelings about it and if we thought we would support the project. I also brought it up to the Marine Resources Committee 2 days ago. And the great thing about it is they had a really lot of good questions, and they're interested in even really following the project to find out the specifics of it, which I think is really kind of cool that they'd like to have them come in and talk to them about it. So what this letter is here for tonight is to ask the Select Board to support this project. There's not going to be any cost to the town. It's really showing support for the work that's going to be done.
Are there 2 letters of support you're asking the board to weigh in on? So one for the project and one for the National Estuary Program in general, or is that not necessary?
It's 2 different projects?
Yeah.
I believe Margaret said she was going to handle that with you.
Okay.
She asked for it to be on the agenda, saying you'd speak to it.
It's called passing the buck.
So the board's
Okay.
been provided both, Mary Ann?
Okay, great.
The one that you drafted for supporting of the grant, and then the other one is an electronic sign-on, but I was able to print that out. Do you need?
No, I know what it's about, enough to talk about it. We also got another request from the Casco Bay Estuary Partnership for looking, there's a lot of changes that are happening nationally, and they're trying to to show the work that they've been doing and what results we've gotten in the state with their projects. So we were asked if we support their projects, perhaps even how we have gained from the work they have done here in town. But it's very general, and when we talked about it at the Conservation Commission meeting, Margaret said she would just take the general letter as generic. Otherwise, we would have got into listing what projects we have benefited from their work. Which, if you don't recall, one was on Wallace Shore Road, where they put in the new bridge.
Right.
And the other was the bridge over Long Marsh. And we've done other projects culvert-wise with them as well.
So Marion, this looks like a federal grant.
Which one?
Yeah, the National Estuary Program, Watershed Grant Program. Looks like a federal grant.
It is.
Oh, boy. Okay.
You're looking at the second letter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's basically, I think, being proactive, because I just heard today, I think they have been told to really list out specifically what they do to prepare for what could be coming.
What a concept. All right, I move that we submit both of these.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Nope.
Any? All in favor?
Right.
Thank you.
Aye. Cumberland County Law Enforcement Role.
So these are essentially routine contracts that the town of Harpswell has had with Cumberland County Sheriff's Office for a number of years. We do not have our own independent police department here. We contract for these services with, again, Cumberland County. We have 3 full-time deputies as part of this contract who cover the town. And that is essentially the general law enforcement contract. They are supervised by, many levels of law enforcement, and ultimately it's the sheriff who is the overseer of the department. But the town of Harpswell is part of Cumberland County, so we do get a lot of benefits just being part of the county. in terms of, some of the detective work, but these are specifically dedicated patrol officers who are in Harpswell that we pay for. If we were to rely only on our county taxes, we wouldn't get a drive-through deputy. The office is in Portland. We're on the furthest reaches of Cumberland County on this end of the county, and this kind of model contract has worked well for us over the years to have that dedicated.
When I was a young man,
Service.
Lucky Haynes, who was a state cop, drove through Harpswell once a year. That was it.
That was plenty.
So there's no substantive changes here,
No,
right? This is
no,
the scene.
no.
I noticed in here that says the town shall provide the sheriff 2 copies of all town ordinances that its deputies are empowered to enforce. And we have done that, right? So
We have, I think, sometimes that slips a little bit if
Yeah.
there's been a new parking
Because-
ordinance, but they should have everything.
Right, because there are, like the fireworks ordinance, for example.
Oh,
They tell them, we
They-
don't
they
enforce that.
definitely
Well,
have
yes,
that.
you do. It's okay, thank
they
you.
definitely have
Well, I
that.
move that we approve these,
I'd second it.
these 2.
Any more discussion?
Nope.
Nope. All in favor?
I,
And when you
Aye.
say these 2, were you approving
Both
the
of them.
Marine
Both.
Patrol?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's 2 dedicated
yeah.
Yep.
officers, thank you.
All right. For the highlight, request bid placement.
You wanna take that?
So the board is aware that the town received a $30,000 grant award to replace, under the Small Community Grant Program, to replace failing septics. And this one, I'm seeking approval to send out bids for the replacement of the system.
You have it.
Yep.
I move that we do
I
that.
second it as quick as I can.
All right. All in favor?
That was the
I don't
quickest
care.
one tonight.
All right, public comment.
The public
this
has
one.
diminished considerably.
Yeah.
Allison left?
Yep.
Yeah, she's left, yeah.
Yep.
I guess she finally decided what she wanted to say.
Yeah, she never did tell us, did she?
No, she asked about whether the,
Oh, that's
it's
right.
gonna
Yep.
be in the, yeah.
Yep.
All right. Other business?
I have a couple of things for the select board. The harbor master had already sent out the annual renewals for the Oars Island Bridge leases, and I'm sure Matt's quite familiar with this, but just to bring everybody up to speed, there's some wharves attached to the Oars Island Bridge property, not to the bridge itself, and DOT many years ago came and said, that's not DOT property, that's U-Town, so to cover ourselves, the
That's not
select
what we
board.
wanted to hear.
Right, so the select board entered into leases with them. It's an annual, renewed on an annual basis. We've received 2 of them so far, so we usually bring those for selectmen approval and signature, administrative process, and then a couple of officials' appointments. I don't know if you want to take everything together or separate.
Sure, why not?
And so the state, as the board is aware, your committee appointments and your appointments of officials always occur in April. The state of Maine, though, requires local plumbing inspectors, code enforcement officers, and the Maine Uniform Building Code and Energy Code Inspector to be done before March 31st. So while the select board has appointed Margaret McIntyre as your interim planner, she would like to continue to be appointed because, until the board and her make that decision. So it would be reappointing Tim Clark as local plumbing inspector, code enforcement officer, Maine Uniform Building and Energy Code Inspector, and Margaret McIntyre, alternate code enforcement officer and local plumbing inspector from April 1, 2025 to March 31, 2026. And depending on what happens with the interim planner, the rest of the time period could be null and void unless the select board wanted her to continue in that fashion, but.
We shall see. Yep.
Need a motion,
Oh, we gotta,
All right.
right?
Motion for those folks? Okay, I move.
I second.
Discussion, all in favor?
I,
Down here. Is that it?
That's it.
I hope so.
Holy moly. Oh, that was quick. All right. We're adjourned.